and back again for yet another Nature of Reality. So I'm going to tell you a story which I got from my usual sources. It's a Korean TV show this time. So it's a young woman who is very happily married, and she's in love with her husband and he's in love with her. And all sorts of dramas happen because of course it's a drama. And here's a significant thing. Her parents both died in a car accident, and her grandmother took her in, brought her up, and is the most significant influence in her life. And her grandmother dies, which happens with grandmothers, and she meets the man that's to be her husband, and they're happily married, loving each other, having a great time, until someone tells her that her grandmother, who she loves so much, actually killed her parents. We get to see what happened in the past. This is not true. The grandmother didn't kill the parents, but the grandmother was behaving very greedily and very recklessly. And there ends up a scene with a car chase, but at no point did the grandmother's car ever touch the other person's car, the parents. The parents were fleeing, they were frightened, they were in an altered state, emotionally unstable. The grandmother didn't kill the parents, but that's what she was told. This is a crucial thing here. And so everything unravelled for her. The one that she thought she loved so very much, her beloved grandmother, she now saw as possibly a killer. She wasn't even sure if it was true, but she was so undermined by this story of the person who told her this story, which actually was not technically speaking true, according to the evidence that we see of the event unfolding. So what then happens is her whole reality is undermined, massively distressed, massively upset. She doesn't know who or what to believe, and she questions the love of her husband, and this causes her husband to question his influence on her. And because he actually played an indirect part in the sequence of events that led to the parents' death, again, he didn't kill anyone. The grandmother didn't kill anyone, the husband didn't kill anyone. But he wove a story himself about, well, if I hadn't done this and I hadn't had that conversation at that particular time. So these two people who were in love and happily married are now estranged, separated, and both in deep despair. So what does this teach us about the nature of reality? So this is one, not from the Hawaiian shaman, this is not from Robert Anton Wilson, this is from me. I claim this one. Be careful about the stories you tell yourself, because the stories you tell yourself about yourself, about those that you care for, has such power, which then brings us into the awareness about the power of the mind. The power of the mind. There is so much to consider here. So I'll resort to my glasses. This is my third of my points about nature of reality, and why I wrote, the mind, our underutilized resource. I don't know about that, that's not really quite on the mark, I would say, but the power of the mind, and as a resource, and as the ability to completely change our reality, is extraordinary. So back to Victoria and the men and the women and the male and the female. If a man tells himself a story he's weak and ineffective and can't get a relationship, what do you think happens? And what about the man that tells himself that he's strong and powerful and everyone would be so interested in him? What do you think happens? The nature of reality, the power of the mind, and the very specific shamanic perspective here, this power of the stories people tell themselves. So what I invite you to do is please do comment if you've got anything you'd like to say, and give some consideration to the stories you tell yourself. Because we're doing this all the time. When something happens, oh, that happened, I feel, I am, ... If something terrible happens, does that cause you to tell a story about yourself? And if you actually do something that you consider to be wrong, how is that going to affect the story you tell yourself? And indeed there are people who live lives of hell, and the hell is of their own creation, because the story they're telling themselves about themselves is that they did something so terrible, and they are so monstrous, and they deserve all the, do you see where this is going? Or on the other hand, you've got the person who's telling them the story of being a winner, being successful, being wealthy, being happy, having wonderful relationships. Be careful about the stories you tell yourself. And I'd love to hear your opinions about all this. And if you want to tell me anything about the stories you tell yourself, I'd love to listen. Thank you very much. All the love to you. Will that be the end of this series? I wonder.